Landmark's been around since the 60s. Without going into too much of the background about it, basically, it's gone through a few different versions, and now it is the course that it is today, and it is education. Some people give it a bad rap for whatever reasons, and we could go into that, but there's not really any point. But essentially, it's education. Now, it's confrontational education, as you need to confront yourself. Basically, a lot of decisions we make in our life determine our beliefs and our actions, and thus our results. So we need to confront a lot of those decisions that we made in life in order to break through them, let them go, transform them, do whatever we need to get to the other side, where we've got a much healthier way of thinking. The education itself, I don't know how well the two of you know spiral dynamics, or what I call the 8 levels of human potential.
Yeah, well, yep. You've explained a little bit of spiral dynamics to us before.
Yep, cool. So the education comes from the 7th level. So very high. Like, it's really close to enlightenment. Like, it's very high level thinking. So, and then they're helping everybody else to overcome their stuff to try and get to that 7th level. And the expectation is that you kind of operate at that level when you're there. There's this expectation. But when you're around people that are having high level conversations, it's easy to partake in a high level conversation. But when you leave that environment, and this is where the challenge is with the education. The education's amazing and spectacular, and the more you hang around those people, the more you're just going to transform your life. So you definitely got to kind of stay in that space. Now, when you step away from it back into your everyday life, the rest of your people in your life are not operating at that higher level thinking. They're operating at 2, 3, and hopefully a 4. And if you're really lucky, maybe a 5. But most people are operating in 2s and 3s. We have a lot of 2 and 4 in Australia. But a lot of the challenges and things that we face come from levels 2 and 3. So we go back into our life, and then we try and have a higher level conversation, but we're not familiar with it because we're only just kind of learning this conversation. So it can be challenging to help inspire the people in your world to help them step up as well. But that's what we're looking to do. One of the best ways to do it is simply invite people to the education. But it's hard to explain what the education is, because even using the levels that I just used to explain it, I can't use that within an everyday conversation. I need to do a lot of education just to get there. And I can't tell you specifically what you'll get personally from it. Yeah. Because everybody gets something different. You can go and listen to what people got, and you go, oh, that's cool. I could do with that. But and it's not about, a lot of people go, oh, I don't need fixing. Well, it's not about fixing either. So no one's broken. There's nothing wrong with anyone. You can continue on life as you are. But if you want your life to be different in some way, then this gives you access to it. And it gives you access to having a life that that you can only really dream of. When I first did the education, this is kind of the conversation they have. They say that through this education, anything you want for yourself in your life is available. And they really do mean anything. And it really is. And when I first turned up, I kind of thought that for me, life was, you were either born with a silver spoon in your mouth, or a kick across the hit across the back of the head or something. So and maybe somewhere in between. But your destiny was kind of fated based on how your life was. You couldn't really get to have much say over it. Then for the education, they're like, no, you get to have all the say that you want. So I thought, well, this is really fascinating, and I thought, well, let's give it a bash. And what I discovered is I really could transform anything in my life. So I was introverted up until I don't know, maybe say 6 months into the education. There's different courses that you do, and I did different courses over about probably 2.5 years. Yeah, cool. And I was introverted, and I just thought that I was introverted, and that's just the way it was. But then I discovered that once I'd got rid of all the stuff that was kind of making me introverted, I discovered that I was now free to talk to people, and I didn't have a need to be introverted. It didn't mean that I didn't get my energy back by being on my own or anything like that. Like I could still certainly, do that.
Yeah.
But it wasn't draining for me to be around people anymore either. I could now really get involved in someone. I get really interested in them, and I became quite outgoing. And just because I'd freed so much of the stuff that was weighing me down. And that's just one of the examples. There's so many things. Like I for a job, I struggled day in and day out to speak to half a dozen people to train them how to use software. I did that for a job for many years. And then I did this education, and now I'm a public speaker. So it kind of lifted the lid on the expectations that I had of myself in the world.
So do you still call yourself an introvert?
It's interesting. I don't believe in introvert, extrovert, the way that the human race looks at it. I don't believe it that way at all. I actually believe we're all extroverts, but stuff happens in our life that makes us be introverted. Now, that's a very separate conversation to how we get our energy. So some of us gain energy by being introverted, as in not talking to people, and some of us gain energy by talking to people. Okay, that's different to being an introvert, as in preferring not to talk to people. Because as a human being, talking to other human beings is a critical part of us to be a human. There's so many people don't recognize the impact it has when somebody doesn't have the opportunity to talk to other human beings, even if they're an introvert. The impact that has is huge.
Yeah. And it doesn't mean that you don't like talking to human beings. It can just be that you don't like talking to a lot of people at the same time, or just talking one-on-one is more your thing. And I was listening to a BNI podcast the other day, and they'd done research on this, and they say that introverted people actually tend to be better networkers for a whole bunch of reasons. That they're more. Mostly it was because they're better listeners, and they listen better, so people appreciate them more. That they're listening and not being one of these big loud extroverts. It's all about me, look at me, look at my business. So yeah, apparently they make much better networkers.
Okay. It's one of those things, as I said, like before I discovered personal development, I was absolutely, I'm an introvert, and that's just kind of the way life was. But once I got rid of all my baggage, the introvert extrovert conversation wasn't even there anymore. I could immerse myself amongst 1 or 100 people, and that was just because I got rid of all the baggage that in my life made it draining for me to be around people.
And then it just didn't matter. You go, I'm not an introvert, I'm not an extrovert, I'm Ross.
That was pretty much it. And because for me there was zero judgment, like from the outside world. Like they could judge me, but it was entirely their stuff and none of mine. So I had to give up a lot of things to be able to be free like that. And I even got to the point where I discovered I could be happy regardless of circumstance. Like it didn't matter what was going on around me, I could just be happy. And I don't know if I've shared this with you guys or not, but I turned up to a funeral with a great big grin on my face, and I'm like, there's a lot of unhappy people here. Like somebody's died. This is you could call this sad, absolutely. And it's going to be weird for everybody if I'm walking around with a very big grin on my face. But I'm committed to being happy regardless of circumstance. So how am I going to make sense of this for myself and for all the people around here? And and that was a really interesting conversation for me to figure out how that would be. So I was there to celebrate that person's life. And yeah, so therefore I can be happy because I got to meet that person. I got to spend time with that person. Like, I am so excited. Yes, it's sad that person died, and that's, you know, it's unfortunate. But I'm not here to commiserate the moment they died. I'm here to celebrate the life that they had and the fact that I got to share part of that with them.
That's fabulous, Ross. Sorry, I've got a crying kid here in the background.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could see there's a distraction. I figured it was family. Yeah. Cool. All right. Were there any other questions about that?
No, thanks, Ross. It's just
Yeah. So the best way to explain it is more or less really what an individual gets from it, because it's really hard to explain the type of education. It's experiential, and it's unique for each person because each person looks at their own stuff, and therefore gets their own breakthroughs in it.
Yeah. So everyone will take away something different from it. That's what you're saying.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Depending on where.
Yeah. There's a lot of There's a lot of common threads. A lot of people talk about the healing of their families. That's a really big thing. You know, they go, oh, you know, we were about to break up, and we went and did this education, and blah, 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 blah. So, you know, everybody will get something different. They'll get what they need from it at the time. But you might go back and do the same course again and get something entirely different. Yeah. Yeah. You might do the relationship seminar and fix your finances, for example.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's unique to every individual. There are certain common threads. Certainly there's common threads. You know, a lot of people go, oh, you know, they have relationship problems which they fix. They have, you know, I've healed their relationship with my family. I'm now at a point where I've asked them to move in, and I expect them to be, all of us to move in next year. And, you know, 10 years ago, I barely even spoke to them.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Mm.
Yeah. I don't know if we introduced this at the start, but we're talking about the Landmark program. So, which yourself, Ross, has done, and our other member, Alistair McDonald, is currently doing this Landmark training, and that's why he can't join us tonight. So I just thought I'd ask the question about what is Landmark all about, because I've heard about so many people doing it and hearing so many great results about it. So that's why I thought we'd ask you about that tonight, Ross. So thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, you're welcome. Look, I could absolutely recommend that even if you don't go on to further education, the second one of their courses is my favourite. But look, even if you just go and do their first one, it's I think the price is up around maybe $800 now. It was 500 and something when I did it. You know, nearly 15 years ago, I think. But you know, obviously the price has gone up since then. But for an entire weekend, it's a bargain. You go to see someone like Anthony Robbins, you're looking at thousands as an entry level to his education.
Yeah.
These guys will give you like a Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and it'll be an extraordinary experience. It'll be confronting, absolutely. But if we don't, you know, confront stuff in our lives, it will continue to stay there and fester and never change. But whatever you go through, it's absolutely worth it. One thing I discovered was the bigger the breakthrough, so the harder it was for me. The thing that I was trying to transform, the harder it was to get to the other side, the more worth it was.
Yeah.
So then I actually became almost a junkie on looking for things to transform in my life, because I got such amazing breakthroughs when I went through something. I'm like, oh, there's something that, you know, that's unpleasant to look at. Let me go look at that, because I'm looking forward to being on the other side of that and how amazing it'll be.
That's incredible results. So really, really great to hear, like I said, about all the amazing transformations that people have had from it. So something that, you know, we can all go and check out one day, hopefully.
Absolutely. Highly recommended.
Great. Well, that was just a little short piece tonight from the All4One community. So it's always just about giving, and hopefully you know, you can always get something out of the conversations that we have. So thanks for listening, and over and out from All for One.